Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm talking about my 5 desert island albums. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music weekly playlist that we put together, and also the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So when I started putting this list together of 5 albums that if I was going to get lost forever on a deserted island or a desert island, whatever you want to call it, what 5 albums would I take? And I didn't want to just go with just my top 5 albums of all time. And kind of, I know that's kind of the route that most people kind of go down when they do a list like this. I tried to think a little bit deeper into it. I wanted to try to have a kind of a wider variety of music, stuff that isn't all just kind of the same genre. You know, I wanted to kind of mix it up, have some stuff that, you know, for different moods or whatever. Just whatever you might want to listen to over the next, 20, 30, 40 years. So I'm sure the first one comes as no big surprise to anyone out there if you've been watching this channel for a while. Or if you're a member of the Facebook group, you know I'm a huge fan of this album. It is my favorite album of all time, so of course I would have to take it with me. Of course that is Pink Floyd's classic, The Dark Side of the Moon, celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. This is an album that, I listen to a lot, it's something that I probably don't go more than a month or so without listening to this, whether it's on vinyl or on CD or if I just stream it. But it's an album that if I was going to get lost on an island for the next, 20, 30 years, I would definitely have to have this one with me. The next one, I guess, is kind of along the same lines as The Dark Side of the Moon. It's just an incredible album, one of my favorite albums of all time. And to be completely honest, I think it's the best album of the 2000s. And of course, that is the Untitled album from Blink-182, released back in 2003. This is a very different album than what Blink had done earlier in the career. If all you've ever listened to is, Dude Ranch, Enema of the State, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, this is a very different musically a very different album than those earlier albums. It's definitely more a mature album. There's darker themes on here. Just I think they really experimented with their sound in ways that they just weren't able to do earlier in their career. And, to be honest, whenever you get Robert Smith from The Cure on your album, you're always doing something right. The Cure is another one of those great bands, one of my favorite bands ever. But beginning and end, there's not a skippable track on this one. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I didn't want to just pick my 5 favorite albums of all time. Even though there are a couple of those in here, I want to try to think a little bit deeper into the topic. The next album I think is a great pick because it does so many different things as far as like different moods. If I want to relax, I can toss this album on. If I want to, have something a little more upbeat, I could toss on the same album and, listen to a lot of the same tracks. And this is like my Sunday morning album that I toss on quite often. If I'm just sitting in my office here checking email or responding to YouTube comments, things like that, I'll toss this album on because it is a great album full of just absolutely great tracks. And from an artist I grew up listening to, I love a lot of his music. But this is the definitive collection by Lionel Richie. Lionel Richie has had this incredible career. Even all the great stuff he did with the Commodores back in the 70s. Of course, all of his great tracks in the 80s. Even some of the stuff he did in the mid to later part of the 90s is actually pretty good. But a great compilation. This is definitely one that I could take with me and kind of chill out or party to or whatever. I guess the funny thing is about this list, I was a teenager in the 90s. I love a lot of 90s music. A lot of my record collection is music from the 90s. But of these 5 albums, there's only one that was released in the 90s, and this is the next one. And this is an album that, this album is the reason why I fell in love with this band. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. It's an album that I could listen to on repeat over and over and over again. And that album is Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo by MxPx. Came out in, I think it was 98 when this album came out. And you've been watching this channel for a while. I'm a big punk rock fan, especially like late 90s, very early part of the 2000s punk. I think this album is probably the best that came out of that genre in that time period. So this album definitely runs the genre of punk rock, especially the late 90s punk. There's definitely some popular tracks on here. And then there's also tracks like Fist vs. Tact, which is a hardcore kind of punk song. So if you're unfamiliar with this album, it's definitely one worth checking out. Like I said, it's one of my favorite albums, definitely of that late 90s punk rock genre. So I couldn't have this list be entirely rock music, or at least from rock subgenres. I'm somebody that's loved a lot of rap throughout my life. I think the first rap album I really kind of fell in love with was Fear of a Black Planet, which I think came out in 1990. Great Public Enemy album. They really kind of kicked it off, and I got into Dr. Dre and a lot of the other stuff that came out after that. But I had to pick an album to put it, just to have in my 5. If I'm going to be on a desert island for the rest of my life, I had to have a little rap with me. But I picked this compilation because I couldn't pick just one album from this artist. I think this is the greatest rapper of all time. Of course, that is Eminem. Curtain Call is a great pick for me because I couldn't pick just one Eminem album because he's got so many great albums. I think really, to be completely honest, any of his first 3 or 4 albums I could have put on the list, but this kind of encapsulates all that, has all that great music on there, a lot of those great hits that I love from his career, but, it's just one I'd have to take with me. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Like I said, that's my 5 albums that if I was going to be going out to a desert island and spend the rest of my life out there, those are the 5 albums that I would take, I guess right now, because this list could change in 20 minutes, I would think. But as of right now, those are the 5 albums I would take. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know what some of yours are. What albums would you take if you were never going to be able to listen to something else again? Like I said, think a little bit deeper into it. Try to come up with maybe some stuff that's maybe a little bit out of the box. But let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a little thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. And that's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.